Hello, friends. Hello, Asaf over there in Israel. Hello from New Jersey. Hello
Hello.
to. Can
Yes.
I hear you? There
Hello.
you are.
Welcome.
Okay.
Welcome to the
Hello,
spaceship.
Chris, behind the scenes, and hello to all our friends around the world who are joining us and who will hear this later. We are the Great Transition. We are looking at what's going on in the world through the lens of the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah. Today, we are going to be talking about consciousness. Consciousness, what is it? And I guess when we say, I feel this, I want to do that, who is this I? At the end of the day, we are always, everything we're doing, it's not just trivia. We want to know what the heck is going on in our lives. Why did this, think about how many people I met a new cousin yesterday. She was like a
Hmm.
cousin of a,
And
my
new? What do you
mom was,
mean? What do you mean by new?
I
New, you
mean,
mean
my,
you
my
you
mom, I didn't know her. She's
okay.
always been a cousin, but she's been a
So you've just
um,
discover you didn't
just
just
discovered
discover
cousin.
her.
My mom was close with her cousin, and then
Okay.
there was like a marriage and a child and another one and so on and so
Okay. So
forth. And
you've
I
never
just met
met, but
yesterday.
you knew she existed.
I didn't even know she existed. This
Oh,
one.
you didn't even know. There
So
you
we were
go.
sitting there, we were talking, and my kids were there, my
Hmm.
brother and his kids were there, and my sister and my mom's cousin, who's also my cousin, who this new cousin was related to. And I thought about how many people, strangers, met, had kids for thousands of years in order for us to end up here. Like how many
Right. Right.
kitchens were
Hmm.
there? How many
Yeah.
dinners? How many
That's that's a
first
lot of
nights
dinners.
together? Just so many, so much
Yeah.
had to happen. So, but
Hmm.
why? What are we doing here? What is? Are we just monkey plus? Is that it? We're
Hmm.
monkeys plus. What are we doing? Just nice monkeys get to enjoy a bunch of stuff until we die. Is there some reason for this life? If there is, can we figure out why? And if we can figure out
Hmm.
why, can we do it quick?
Yeah,
Because
quickly, please.
between the times
Me,
that I feel good, I feel really not good. I do get to feel good from time to time, sliver, but between all of those times, there's plenty of not good. And what's that all about?
mm,
Um, if you had to put all the good on one side of the scale and all the bad in our lives on the other side of the scale, um,
yeah, that's a pretty bad calculations. I mean,
is it worth it? Yeah,
Kabbalists have been through that calculation. The if that's the way you're judging it, if that's the way
it's not.
your
It's not a
scales
good.
work,
It's not a good. Yeah,
yeah,
not a
not
not a
not a
not a
good
good.
not a good sum total. Yeah.
So,
No, no, but
what
Bala
is
Salam actually goes into, like, he says it's about um you
this is
know
80/20.
80/20. He says, yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah, there is this Chris, if you can dig that quote up, maybe it'll be cool for later. Anyway, yeah. So where
So,
life is not
what is all
worthwhile
this?
living. Thank you everyone for tuning into the Great Transition. That's a great show opener, Seth. I'm sure everyone's happy.
No, so we're here to get to the 100% good.
Okay.
That's what we're doing here actually. That all of this stuff that's happening, it's not some accident. Also, there's not just some god up there playing like a video game with us, but there is a way to discover that we are everything and actually in control of everything, and not just in control of your job. You are your boss,
Hmm.
and the money that you get and the money you didn't get yet, and every vacation you'll ever take, and every you are all of it. Imagine that if you could fit everything, all the past, all the present, all the future somehow in your perception and feel all of that, but while you're having to go to the bathroom and go eat dinner and take care of everything because you're still alive. So
Hmm.
how is that possible? What are the Kabbalists even talking about? We're going to figure it all out. Let's start out
Hmm.
with consciousness, because in the meantime, while the Kabbalists have been writing about what's been going on for a couple thousand years,
Hmm.
scientists
Right.
recently have been spending a lot of money trying to figure stuff out also. And
Yes. Yes.
that's what we're
And
going to talk
okay.
about today.
Okay. Right. Right. Okay. So we want to get into this, yeah?
Consciousness.
Okay. So here's what I wanted to start off with. There is
Okay.
this cutting edge research, cutting edge experiment. Let me show you this headline here, right? What's the origin of consciousness? Global effort puts two top theories to the test. So I was curious. Someone sent that to me, and I was like, okay, that is interesting. So finally, scientists are, taking it really seriously, and they are taking it seriously. There's like $5 million dollars involved. There's 6 different laboratories around the world on different continents. There's hundreds of participants in this whole thing. It's going to take a couple years until they actually get to the findings. It's already been a couple years to set up this kind of experiment, and the idea is that they're trying to compare um,
Yeah.
findings, results, testing the two top theories about consciousness today, scientific theories about consciousness. And this experiment, what's cool about it, it is cool that they can actually get to the results that show which theory is correct. And there's an agreement in advance between the scientists that if the results show so and so, then it means that theory A was correct, and otherwise theory B was correct, and so on. But here's the thing. One way or another, I'm gonna super oversimplify these theories because I don't think that's our main
But
focus
before you
right
even
now.
do that, just
But
explain what
okay,
is consciousness.
that's exactly where it depends on who you ask, man. It
Oh.
depends on who you ask. But according to
So what
these
are they
scientific,
studying? Yeah, what are these
right?
guys studying?
So these scientific theories are basically studying brain activity. That's what they're going to check. They're going to check whether what brain activity tells us about consciousness. So, okay, I'll say in brief what are these two theories about. One is called global neuronal network theory, something like that, right? Global neuronal workspace theory. It basically says that consciousness is that it has to do with several centers in our brain, and this chatter is happening between our neurons, and because there's centers, especially in our frontal lobes of the brain, that are able to integrate that information and rebroadcast it across the brain, that is what creates a conscious experience. That's theory number one. So it's mostly in the frontal lobes, they say. Okay, again, oversimplifying, dumbing it down, it's not that important for us. The other theory says, well, we should look at consciousness a little differently. There's all kinds of parameters. There's actually 5 that they're looking at. They're drawing upon phenomenology, which is a branch of philosophy. Anyway, based on that, they're saying there's a few parameters that have to take place if an experience is conscious, and based on that, the centers in their brain that should be active when a conscious experience happens are in the back of the brain. So one theory says we're gonna see in the experiments results in this side of your brain. The other theory says it's gonna be in this side of your brain.
Sweet. And then
That's
and then how
that's
does that
it.
help?
Exactly my point exactly. Kabbalistically, it's this whole thing is is backwards. I'm not gonna expand on this. I'll just say that one way or another, this is the two top theories of science right now, and all it's saying is that in one way or another, consciousness is brain activity. That's basically what they're saying before they even do the experiment. The experiment is just to say where the brain activity is happening, that we can call that conscious.
Hmm.
So
Well,
basically,
so
yeah. So
we only
neurons,
have two
yeah.
ways of taking in reality. We have the mind and we have the heart. That's basically it. And what else do we have, right? I mean, let's just put a few things on the table before we, because I could tell
I don't
you're
know
already fired
what's
up
the
about
heart.
this, but
What do you mean? What do you mean heart? What's
I
heart now?
emotions. I mean, we have thoughts and we have emotions.
Right. So, but the scientists, these neuroscientists, will tell you it's all in your brain. It's your neurons. There's the electric chatter happening between different neurons and centers in your brain, and that constitutes
Maybe
everything
it's just
you
because that's how
see,
they
feel,
define
touch.
consciousness, though. Maybe it just comes down to their definition of what is consciousness.
Okay, so that's why we have to ask ourselves, is that everything that we are? Is that all that consciousness is? Brain chatter, brain activity, neurons sending electric signals to each other? That's what consciousness is all about? Because both of these theories, and again, millions of dollars, hundreds of people, different labs around the world, all of that effort is going into this experiment that presupposes that consciousness is just brain activity, that consciousness is created by brain activity. That's essentially what these scientists are saying, that all our conscious experiences, they are created, they are the result of, the outcome of, the consequence of brain activity, which comes first. And
Comes
I'll
first
just I'll
before
just
what?
bring up the which comes if you ask the question, what comes first? The brain activity creates the consciousness, what we call
Mm.
consciousness, or
Mm.
is it possible that we got the whole thing backwards? Is it possible? And I'm just going to bring up the
You're not
question,
saying that the
okay?
scientist's saying this. You're asking a question here now.
Well, first of all, it depends who you ask. These scientists know. And if you ask these scientists, and they're mostly neuroscientists, no, because that's basically their whole look. They're investigating the brain, and they're brilliant people, and they're doing great science and all that. But they presuppose that the brain activity creates what we call a conscious experience. And if you listen to the growing consensus among theoretical physicists, for example, then you see all kinds of completely opposite perceptions about consciousness that basically say that all of our experience of this universe, including time and space, is an emergent phenomenon, meaning that this whole universe that we experience is not there before we are there to experience it. We are creating it with our experience. Now, of course, that sounds a little woo woo and weird if you don't, really go into the science of it. But there is a growing consensus that time, space, everything there is. There you go. Here's a Chris threw a Stephen Hawking quote at us. I think the brain is essentially a computer, and consciousness is like a computer program. It will cease to run when the computer is turned off. Theoretically, it could be recreated on a neural network, but that would be very difficult as it would require all one's memories. Well, that's one aspect of it. Yeah, there's Amit Goswami. Yeah, he's a theoretical physicist. Consciousness does matter. Matter is secondary. Consciousness is primary. Brain does not do consciousness. Consciousness does the brain. There you go. So, and there's more. There's more where that comes from. Anyway,
So,
let
so
me
those
let
are
me just
basically
put it at
opposite, right?
that. Yeah, that's basically two opposite approaches. So it depends on who you ask. It depends on who you ask is what I would say. But it's still it I'll say baffles me. I have a different word in mind, but let's say it baffles me that there's so much effort being put in, and money, and brain power by the way, and research people put into this, into just saying, is it so? You'll put a few subjects there, and
You
they
know why this
will.
is all your
You,
fault?
what?
Because if you had
Okay.
something better for them to do with their time,
Mm,
because for example, you come to these scientists and you explain to them very clearly
right.
about the nature of reality. And you start to lay it all out and you give them the books of Kabbalah and they start to, wow, but now they're out of work. What are they going to do with their kids?
um,
How are they going to get groceries? So the problem really is
only in the beginning, man. Only at
you're
right
going to be responsible for a lot of people out of work. If
at
you It's the same
first.
thing with this whole COVID thing. Whether or not it came from a lab, it's very, very difficult to determine because too many people would lose money, whether it's from a lab, if it was, for example. Anyway, that we don't need to get into all that stuff now. But all of these things, we are dealing with a lot of things um, in reality where it would go against my what do they
but
say?
but
What's that famous expression? It's like a
but
famous joke. Like if
I would say, wait a second. I would say, um, only in the beginning is what I wanted to say a moment ago. You'll if you if you change, the worldview upside down in the beginning, all the previous systems will not work. You're right, but once they change direction, you're gonna have new kind of work, new kind of science, new kind of research, new kind of worldview that will give birth to a new form of engagement for uh, the scientific community in this respect. Anyway,
because
um,
all of these
yeah,
people doing all of this work, it's great. It's just that, because they need to get paid and all that kind of stuff, it kind of,
yeah, there,
um,
there's no doubt that the monetary incentive is an issue.
not a
Is a,
lot of
is a
money in Kabbalah. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, that doesn't really work. No, but while we're at it, I'll just say that, again, I'm you know from the little that I've been into the scientific world, or the academic world, and discussions with people who've dedicated their life into it. Many will tell you that there's a lot of dogma and prejudice and presupposition and pride and politics and power that goes, that stands in the way of doing science the way a lot of scientists would really like to do it. A lot of people in the scientific community would like to make breakthroughs and change paradigms and research things in a different way. But like you said, if they question certain things, they might be going against someone who may be then going against them. It becomes a political thing, a power struggle, changing. If you in short, you get the idea. We're people, humans. Wherever there are humans, the ego is involved. Where the ego is involved, even the quest for truth cannot be pure and objective. So, consciousness. You wanted to make us
So
conscious
basically,
about
there's just to
consciousness.
get this clear, you have a lot of
Yeah.
scientists putting a lot of money in, top people in their business, and the question is the consciousness in the front of the brain or the back of the brain, and whoever wins, they're gonna hook everything up, and then that's what they're gonna figure out.
Yeah, and there is, yeah, and there is, and this is like the only question that's being seriously researched. Whereas the questions such as, does consciousness come before brain activity, or
So
gives birth
this
to
is
brain
something very
activity?
interesting.
That's,
If you don't know what you're looking for, it's hard to find it. If you have a guide or a map or something like that, then you have a possibility. But if you don't know what you're looking for, it becomes really difficult. Optical illusions point this out very clearly. In fact, I started to look into the optical illusions, and I'm going to show you some. But what I saw here is that the optical illusions were made. Many of them were made by scientists, psychologists, different people studying different phenomenon in
mm,
order to understand behavior. It wasn't like someone. I mean, you have MC Escher and stuff like that, but it wasn't like someone who. And I'll show you an auditory example of MC Escher's endless staircase.
mm,
Super cool. Um, it's as if the note da 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 da. The notes keep going higher and higher and higher and higher forever. It plays a trick on the brain. So the
mm,
point is that there's these phenomenon that we discover about human behavior. And then in order to test them and see why is it happening like this, why are we behaving like this, so they made these visual things or different kind of
hmm.
experiments in order to prove or understand.
So the optical illusions you're talking about are part of research into human behavior.
Yeah, right. Which was really
Hmm.
interesting to go down this rabbit hole because, for example, if you have if you have something yellow and a certain, I don't know colors that well as music, but if you have something yellow and a blue light is reflecting off it and it made some kind of like orange reflection
Mhm.
in a shape of a circle. And then here you have something orange just making an orange reflection. So someone looking at it sees two orange circles. To them, it's exactly the same thing, but they're not the same thing at all. One is a a yellow square with
Mhm.
another color
Right.
light, and it's coming
Right.
through a something with a window with this round circle, and the other one is just a round circle.
Right.
So um, what's really, really interesting when you get into this, hold on, Chris is writing something here.
Yeah, Chris is adding that purple, for example, is not an actual color. It's something that our brain makes up. By the way, our brain makes up all the colors. If you want to, like, when you're, what's a color? What's a color, man? When you're, I think, electromagnetic waves hitting your retina at like 400 nanometers or something like that, we call that blue, I think.
Okay, so here's something
I'm
very
probably
interesting.
inaccurate, but we call that blue. But is that blue? That's not blue. That's just how our brain interprets that wavelength. What
Um,
here's here
as
you were,
usual, you jump right into the deep end, but so if you take all of the colors in the visual spectrum from infrared to ultraviolet, I think it is, all the colors that we see on our spectrum. So in our culture, we divide it into seven: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo,
right.
violet. That's
Mm-hmm.
how we do it in where I grew up. But that's the visible light spectrum.
Okay.
But that can also be divided differently. For example, the musical scale, our Western musical scale, da 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 da, it's seven notes,
Right.
and then it repeats.
Yeah.
But there is a scale from the Far East that has something like 22 notes. It's the same octave,
Yeah.
but you just make the divisions in different places
Yeah.
because
You're
of your
like
culture.
your
So you know,
milestones are different. Your naming conventions are different. Your markings
right.
are
So even
different.
if you look at
Yeah.
different cultures, you can see the colors that come out of different. I'm talking about
Right.
more ancient
Right.
cultures. They have different
Yeah.
kind of color schemes that come out of them, even in things they wear or things like that, because they
Right.
perceived the world. It's the same colors from in the visible spectrum, but depending on where they divide them and how they saw them, and the same thing with sound, it depends on where they
Mm-hmm.
divided them and why were these things divided the way they were. It's divided the way they were based on the way that you and I would say, the way their desire developed, the
Mm-hmm.
way that they
Yeah.
expressed themselves.
Well, the this triangle between perception and consciousness and culture and language too. I would put all those three: language, mentality, culture. It's all connected, but how they overlap and inter-influence each other, let's say, is fascinating. I mean, one of the I think one of the best examples is how the you know people who live in snowy areas, like in like super cold areas where there's only snow, they have a lot of discernments about snow that you don't have. I
Yeah,
think
I heard that the Eskimos in Alaska have like 400 names for snow.
I don't know if it's 400, but it's a lot. Yeah, I think it's
The certain wetish
Chris, can
kind,
you?
a certain dry
Yeah, yeah,
kind,
yeah,
a
exactly.
certain.
And so what's interesting? It's not just that they have more words. They have more words because they see more differences than you and I see. We'll look at it
Mm.
and we'll just go, "Oh, this is white snow, and this is white snow. It's all snow," you know. And then they'll go, "No, this is
So
like."
you
Snow
brought up this
number
thing.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 15 and 17 and whatever. Chris, how many?
We
80,
used
180. There you go. Chris, to your
180.
aid.
I was off
180.
by 50%. Okay.
Okay.
So we have this thing we refer to in the wisdom of Kabbalah all the time. And you just said it, and I think it might be one of the first times we talked about it here. It's called discernments,
Right.
bilulim, in like to clarify, to
Yeah.
discern something. So that's great. Everybody, jot it down in your notebook. Discernments. We use this all the time because the mind does serve a super, super important role in this whole gig. You got from like here up, it's called the top three, and here down, it's called the bottom seven. We'll talk about that one day. That's the whole 10 right there, so to speak. Not really, it's a body. We're talking about something spiritual, but there's all this stuff that goes on purpose from here in this part with all these thinking and discernments, and then all the stuff down here, which is feeling. So this part feels, and then up here, it has to figure out a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
We're not throwing away either part. So these discernments, so on snow, they have a way because of their life, because of how they developed, and because of a reason. If they had no reason for it, they wouldn't. But to discern the snow, well, this is more dry. I
Mm-hmm.
guess we can move it easier. This is more wet. I guess we can pack it better,
Right.
or whatever it is.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Let me show you something. Anybody who has epileptic seizures probably don't watch this part. For 20, 30 seconds, we're going to look at an image. And if you've never done, let me digress for a second.
Go ahead, digress.
I saw somebody, an old childhood friend, sent me something on Reddit this week.
One
about
second. Let me
mush.
just
Oh,
let me just clarify to if there's someone new here on the in the chat. In if you're new in TGT, this is something that's pretty much puts together this conversation. The digressing part, the tangents. So get used to it, please. Yeah, go ahead.
I digress. Okay. So he sent me a story about a guy who said he wanted ego death, and he ate some amount of psychedelic mushrooms. The
Okay.
guy was writing his experience. He said, I was beyond time, space, and motion. I felt all reality. He went through this this whole thing. And then another guy underneath, and then a lot of people wrote about the experience and stuff. One guy wrote, he's like, that happened to me the first time I did it too. And then I was like, I transcended my ego, and I was one with all nature. And then like 2 days later, I realized I had a job at Pizza Hut, and I had to go back to work. And he's like, and it all went away. So we're gonna see something a little bit trippy in a second, but we want to talk about what we're interested in is we're not leaving. The thing about the mushroom trip is you can't exist like that. You feel some sensation. I mean, there's a lot of talk now about psychedelics. In fact, I'm getting ads on it about psychedelics in my news feed now. It's as a therapy for all different kind of, I don't know why they're
Oh,
targeting.
there's very interesting research that's been happening. That's very interesting actually about how it can help. How psychedelics can help PTSD, things like that, depression. If that's what
It's a
you mean.
miracle. They
There's
discovered if you feel good, you actually feel good.
yeah, no, but I mean, it's interesting that at least in some respect, people are starting to see in a serious way the the inextricable connection between how we feel and how and the result of that, and our feelings, and then this whole mind body connection and everything. It's all one thing. The human is just one thing that needs to feel good, and and we can't just expect that that you'll be all right, at work and emotionally and psychologically, and in all respects everything will be okay, but you'll be in a culture that that wants to hunt you down and is hostile to you. That for instance can't be.
Right. How
So
can you feel? So you get a taste of this reality. You have some psychedelic experience, and you feel nature. You feel the unity of nature. Somehow through some plant magic, you feel that everything is connected. And actually, it's probably very similar to a religious experience, or even at like a concert or sex. I don't know what. Everything is just, wow. It's like, it's all one. It's all
mhm,
good. And then,
yeah.
move your car, to clean the streets, or whatever. You're back into this hostile world. And
Yeah.
so we're looking for a solution that basically, in short, this wisdom of Kabbalah is dealing with, doesn't leave any stone unturned. So, um, with that said, with that little intro, let's
Yeah.
look at
Show me
this for a
some
second. So what I'm
optical illusions. You were
so what
promising
I'm going to ask you to do
something.
now, I'm going to show you
Okay.
something. Look at this. We'll show it maybe for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Okay, just look straight at the middle of the screen,
Okay.
and then when we're done, when I say
Yeah.
we're done now, look at a wall in your room. Okay,
And
and
then I'm gonna
let's
I'm
try that.
gonna what am I gonna turn
Okay,
into? What's
you're not
gonna
going to turn into
happen?
anything, and whatever happens is going to be over in a few seconds. So you don't have nothing to worry about. I found this by a
Okay,
guy called
all the
Green.
viewers, dear viewers, you will testify when when you will be asked, please.
Okay, so this is the
All
guy called
right.
Green Pro. I found this video on his on YouTube. Just so
Mhm.
check this out for a second. So stare at this.
Okay, so right at the center, right?
Just stare at the center,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm staring at it too. And basically, what we want to see is how reality as we perceive it and reality as it is are not the same thing. And we're going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about the world itself
Okay, the
doesn't
whole
matter.
the
Just
shapes
keep
are already changing. Do I keep
Don't worry.
looking
Yeah,
at the?
just keep looking at the middle.
Mm-hmm.
The it it doesn't even matter. Just gaze towards the middle of this. The world, and then when we're done, I'll tell you in a few seconds. We're going to look at a wall or something off to the side or something on your
Mm-hmm.
desk. Keep looking at the middle, everyone. The world that we live in doesn't hardly matter. What matters is us. What matters is how we feel and what we make of it. Okay, so now everyone, look at the wall next to you.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember like a really yeah, very cool.
Is everything
Mm-hmm.
mushy and moving? And
Yeah, there we go. Now it
it
got
came
back
back.
to
Yeah.
where are the
Okay.
horns though? Where are the I thought I'll have some
Okay.
till I grow
So
some horns.
that's
No,
the
it's
first thing.
very yeah, yeah, it's very tangible with such a thing to see just how malleable our perception is. There's no
so
doubt.
uh,
Yeah.
right. So what happens is, imagine, let me show you something else. This is cool. And before we get to the next one, how about we just, where is it? Um oh, I'm going to really freak you out with a few things here.
Come on, hit me. I'm ready now. Nothing can
Okay, let me show you this one. This one is really fun. So imagine that you're going to vote for a politician, and I'm going to vote for a politician, and we're having a
Okay.
debate about which politician we want to vote for, right? And
Right.
I'm saying, no, mine is better than yours, and you're saying, no, yours is better than mine, and we're fighting over things that we think, according to our perception, are real. These three cars are all exactly the same size, but I
Yeah.
would have been willing to bet you an hour ago $100 that they weren't. I would have been
Right.
able to maybe even go out into the
I'm
streets and riot
I
about
still
something.
am probably. It
Okay, what I
doesn't
want you to do when this show
the
is over is take a piece of paper and put it on the screen.
yeah. No, I'll
Hold on,
tell
let
you
me
what.
find them.
Here's the thing. Even though when I know they're the same size because you're
I'm,
showing me they're the same
I'm
size,
telling you they are. Yeah,
I still don't believe they're the same size.
I know. I know you don't. I took a piece of paper and I marked it with a pencil. And I recommend anyone who doesn't believe it to check that out afterwards. This was by a guy also. That was also this guy Green Pro. So could you imagine that you believed something
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and you like even fought somebody in the street about it, and the other person believed something and they fought you about it, or you argued with your
Uh,
wife about it or whatever because she said one car was bigger and you said no, the other one was small or whatever,
right.
and it was just this.
basically our life basically our life is is that if you
Could
think
you
about it.
imagine?
Let me throw another thing into the mix here. When the cars thing reminded me of the ash experiment. And maybe Chris, if you can find that picture. Anyway, in the ash experiment, they take a guy, they put him in a group with other people who are collaborators of the experimenter, and they show them three lines, and like with the cars, one is obviously bigger or longer than the other. One is shorter. It's very clear. Like they're not, they don't look the same, right? And in this case, there's no optical illusion in the brain. There's an optical illusion that's created by the social environment. How crazy is that? Meaning
Right.
that the people around that person who is, at first they ask, the experimenter basically goes around the circle of the people who are looking. All of them are collaborators besides one. One is the actual subject of the experiment, right? and and so the subject, the experiment is basically about social conformity. So they're looking at the lines. There we go. Chris got something for us. Yeah, okay, there you go. So the question the experimenter will ask is, which line from A, B, and C is the most equal to in length to X, right? Let's say that they did it like that. So now they go around the room and everyone's a collaborator. So everyone says consistently A, right? And you see, and the real subject of the experiment is somewhere at the end, like second to last that's being asked, let's say, right? So he sees one person says A, then he sees another person says A, then he sees another person says A, and then, long story short, he, after a few rounds of that with different but similar tests, he starts questioning his own perception to the point that he starts relying on the visual perception of, as expressed by the people around him, to the point that's the highest level of distortion, where he actually begins to see that these lines are equal in length, even though it's completely wrong, right? And so, and that's been, like, analyzed by psychologists, that it can even reach that level of distortion, and most people conform. So now I want to add to your um, depiction of life situations. Imagine that you're constantly being told by the media and social media, traditional media, newspapers, people around you, at work, on the street, that something is bad is happening, or going
Or
to
at
happen,
first,
or
yeah,
something
no,
good is
exactly.
happening, right? And
At first it was sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
no, 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 keep going. That's
At first it was that you have to, well, there's nothing else except being in a family or being a warrior, and then probably even then you had a family. So it's being in a family, and then there's the king, and that's all there is. And today, it's like totally different. You don't need this, you don't need that. It's not even that there's a good or a bad, but that whatever society tells you, that's how you become, regardless. Back in the day,
Yep.
it's like, well, I don't really want to be in a family. What if a person is like
Mm-hmm.
biologically gay, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and the only choice back then was get married? Say the 1950s, 1940s. I was thinking even further back, but right. He didn't
Right.
have any options, that guy. Now today, for example, it's almost like the opposite. It's like, maybe I do feel that I would be so comfortable being married. To
Mm-hmm.
hetero, what anybody, I would be so comfortable being married and just having a home with some. But it's like it's not. I can't find anyone that wants that, because the whole life is always about what's next, what's fast, who can do this, what do you got, how do I do that. It's not even about what's good or bad. And that's the thing, that when you told me about this consciousness experiment, and I was also thinking that the same week about the optical illusions, which was really cool. We were both on that same wavelength. um, if we look at it from outside, trying to understand what's going on, we can
Yeah.
only look at it based on our current framework. But if we understand the plan of nature, and that's where the wisdom of Kabbalah comes in, if we understand what's going on, right, then we see, okay, so there's such thing as groupthink. People even behave like sheeps. They all follow. Okay. I see that. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Okay. And I see that actually I see the car looking like that, and the other person sees the car looking like this. And we can't reconcile. You could test us 100 times. We can't reconcile. So we really see things. Actually, nature designed us to all have a totally different perspective on this thing.
Right.
It's as if you start to understand the process
Hmm.
of nature, it's not like the reason we see, the scientists are saying, well, the reason we have this optical illusion is because the mind can't calculate like this. No, if you understood what the mind was trying to do, if you understood what the plan of nature was trying to do,
Exactly.
the plan of nature developed this being, this
That's
creature here.
that's what I'm saying. It is so back to the consciousness experiment. It's just so superficial. Is what I That's what I'm feeling towards this whole thing. It's like that's the big deal. If you're gonna see brain activity when you ask some subjects to do some things and scan their brains, you're gonna see more brain activity in this part of the brain or that part of the brain. You think that cracks the riddle of consciousness? What about the fact that we are constantly creating a picture of reality? Everyone is creating their own picture of reality every second of the day. And the fact is that we live in a, if you judged it, physically, objectively, you'd say we live in a colorless, odorless, uh, um, a world, like a transparent world. What is that world? We never even um, feel each other when we touch each other. When I hug you, all I feel is the resistance of my atoms interpreted in my brain, and I name that resistance of my own resistance. I name that Seth. Oh, that feels nice. You know what I mean? The so um, researching, like, that level of, it's like symptomatic. It's like that's
Oh,
not gonna.
slow down,
Okay.
slow down.
Okay.
Whoa.
Okay.
There's no taste, there's no smell, there's no nothing. And when you hug me, it's just resistance. Come on, slow it down for me.
That's already. This is the thing. Scientists know that, especially neuroscientists. You know,
Okay, we're not all scientists here, so just break it down.
this is something. First of all, it's beautiful to see that Kabbalists have written about this hundreds and even thousands of years ago. It's just the most recently, 100 years ago, Bala Sulam wrote it clearly in the preface to the Book of Zohar. But Chris, maybe you can dig up that quote. But Kabbalists have written about this way before. Recent science knows this. This is nothing new. We are creating the picture of reality in our brain. We know that this is a fact, and there's no question about it. That we don't actually see the colors and visuals, and we don't actually smell what we smell. There is some reality that is unknown outside of us. Let's say we don't even know really if it is outside of us. We have no clue what's happening outside of us, and our senses are simply offering to our brain some sort of a correlation with the thing that is outside. And then our brain takes all that information, integrates that, and it's all about resistance. It's all about pressure. It's like whether it's pressure on your retina, whether it's pressure on your skin, whether it's your nerve, your taste buds, or your in your the sensors in your nose. How do you call them? Whatever. The Your brain takes all that information, integrates that, compares it to things it already experienced before, and names it ultimately, if you're a human. And we call that perception of reality. Bees, in right next to you, see a whole different spectrum of colors, as dogs, smell the world in a completely different way,
So,
as
so when you
bats
say,
see the
okay,
world differently.
hold on.
So
When
what's
you
the
say
world?
there's no
Yeah.
color, no nothing, no nothing, basically, you're going back to the Ari, who wrote the Tree of Life, the big Ari, who starts the Tree of Life by saying the beginning was just, it's just everything comes from in the beginning. Forget about the beginning.
Mhm.
Just everything is this empty air, just this full,
Mm.
just this whole thing until we start to make something. Because at first the creatures were much less complex, and discernments. Here we go back to discernments, and back to the mind. When you have a small mind, or first some alligator mind or whatever,
Mm.
it it can discern this, it can discern that, and then it develops, and then it can make more. This whole top third here, the upper three, it's called in the wisdom of Kabbalah. It can start to do all of these different things until here we can appreciate a symphony. Could you imagine playing a symphony for an alligator? What kind of emotions you could get out of that guy?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
you can't get good out
Nice one.
emotions out of an alligator, but
Yeah.
you could make a person cry or laugh or whatever, probably even
Mm-hmm.
within a minute, if you knew. So out of that endless air, that endless space, depending on how this, um, help me, I'm trying to tie it all in with the
The
consciousness.
the the sensor the okay. The question we want to ask
Oh, wait, I
is
got something.
okay.
There's
Go.
two things that are happening. One thing is the feeling part has to develop to be able to feel more and more of it, because
Mm-hmm.
if it's too small, it can't feel enough of it. And then the other part, the mind, that has to be able to make the right discernments on all of it. Because like with the mushroom trip, like he made a big vessel real quick, but there was no way to manage such a vessel, to manage all of that feeling. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't know too much about the psychedelic, but I'm just using it as I'm using it liberally. That that to that on the one hand, you need to have the feeling that, if I just still had the feeling of an alligator, it didn't matter if I had a person's brain. I can't do much because I could only calculate, like, I just need to get some food. But if you get a big feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and then this mind that can calculate it all. Now we're talking about somebody who's about to
So
reveal all of
right.
reality.
So okay. So another aspect of this is this the the brain which that we have that analyzes our feelings, right? And um, the data that is accumulated by the senses, that is gathered by the senses, that brain does its work according to some deeper engine, to a deeper program. Why does it analyze reality in this way and not the other? Why is it that, when you take a certain psychoactive substance, your brain works differently in interpreting reality, creating a different picture of reality, right? When you are depressed, you see a different picture of reality as well. When you are happy, by the way, there's a lot of science about how positive emotions change a lot in how your brain works. You become more productive, more creative, making more connections. You actually see more. Your eye literally captures more information, more laterally, I think, when you feel more positive. Like they did these experiments where they put a camera tracker on people's eyes, and so anyway, so our picture of reality, our perception of reality is influenced um, by our emotions. And the brain is like this machine that it just kind of like puts the picture together, but it doesn't determine the program. There's a deeper, more fundamental program that is more connected to what we feel. And if you want to go, in a hardcore Kabbalistic direction, it becomes very clear. The desire is what programs the mind. The desire is the basis of consciousness. The desire is the only substance that was created outside of nature's guiding force, of nature's creative force. That is the one thing that feels, that is sentience itself, that is consciousness itself, desire. And so our whole scientific endeavor in this world and our whole life, our culture, everything, we're just trying to understand our desire, because that's what we feel it, but we're just trying to understand it. When we research the world, whether it's E equals mc squared that Einstein comes up with, and changes revolutionizes science about a century ago, whether it's people who discover new stars through new planets through their telescopes, what we're actually looking into, if all of reality is created within us, right? We're actually looking into ourselves. We are putting words and equations and names onto our feelings. We are living in our only sensor of existence, which is desire. And that desire is non-material. It's not in your body, it's not in your brain. Your brain doesn't create your desire. Your brain can mediate it, or moderate, or calculate for your desire. But the engine of human life and all levels of life is desire. And humans just happen to be the most complex, the most advanced level of desire. And that is what science is not researching at all, pretty much. I mean, you have psychology a little bit that is, half of the time fighting with itself, whether it's an actual science or not. But the only way to research the desire empirically is to be able to observe it from outside, so to speak. For that, you need to rise to a higher level of existence, a higher level of consciousness. That's what Kabbalists are talking about. That's spiritual consciousness. That's a life on the level of intention that enables you to see where your desires are directed. Anyway, that's going too far for today, probably. So Chris threw in this quote. This is from Baal Sulam, right? Forward to the Book of Zohar. Let it not surprise you that you find such a conduct in our corporeal perception too. Take our sense of sight, for example. We see a wide world before us, wondrously filled, but in fact, we see all that only in our own interior. Right. So,
And when the interior changes,
the world changes.
The outside changes, because
Yes.
there's this one as well, real quick, if I could find it. It's just like the car. Well, let's just talk about the cars. If you know already, if you're an artist, okay, look at that.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Your mind is reading
this automatically without even
even
thinking about
thinking
it.
about it.
Yes.
Right? But
That's
if someone put up
the
those,
power of neural pathways, the power of the mind to complete the
Chris,
picture.
can you put it
Right.
up again?
Yeah, it's a good one.
If you saw this, that word reading, for example, maybe you'd figure that one out. But look at the word automatically. If you saw it in a different context, it would mean nothing. But we already are. Thanks, Chris. The point is that all of these tools, all of these optical illusions, all of these things, all of this design that nature spent a long time. I mean, for nature, time doesn't mean anything, but in our in our 100 years or whatever we get, nature's been around a long time. It's a couple billion years to get us here. That is a lot of trial and error. That is a lot, or I'm not going to name what she's done, but that's a lot of progress from stardust until you
Mm-hmm.
get this machine here, this system, this operator, this operation, whatever this computer thing, this fleshy computer is doing. It's not. We just want to start to see what nature made and use it correctly. It's pretty simple. The whole gig is really pretty simple. We now are born, and in our 30, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years, we're looking at a couple billion years or even beyond time, space, and motion and trying to say what it is from that. Instead, from the other perspective, from above to below, it's kind of like look at what nature made. Not from below to above, so to speak, but look at what nature made, learn what nature made, and then all of these operations make sense in perspective. It's correct that you see it like that, and all of those optical illusions kind of resolve themselves because now the whole picture starts to come into focus in a whole new way, because now I'm not just looking at reality through my eyes and thinking that that's it, but when I start to integrate, connect with you in a correct way, now you see the world totally different than me, and I
Mm-hmm.
see it totally different from you. And then there's this other thing, and all of a sudden, like I guess it's almost like when we looked at the wall after looking at that thing, like the reality that we see starts to feel and look different. It's the same thing with like one eye or two eyes. If one eye, you don't have
Mm-hmm.
three dimensions. With two eyes, all of a sudden you have three dimensions. So when I'm
Mm-hmm.
connecting with the other people, now all of a sudden I'm getting into, dare I say, 10 dimensions. We start to
Mm-hmm.
actually perceive a 10-dimensional, so to speak, reality. We acquire 5 additional senses. And now we're talking about a whole different reality that I hope Asaf, these scientists will call you at least, and maybe you can pay them so they can start talking
Um,
about these, the
I
true nature of
do have
reality.
I do have scheduled a conversation for sometime soon with our our friend, a theoretical physicist that is also a Kabbalah student, and we were supposed to have a deep conversation about time and space to try to come to try to come up with some interesting explanation in a new way. Anyway,
There's something that always is left
yeah,
hanging around this topic. Were you about to say something else?
no, I just said
there,
anyway.
there's something that's always hanging around this and that, and people are like, well, and we always see this when we begin teaching the first semester of Kabu. The questions are always like, well, if this reality doesn't exist, like why do I have to go to work? Or like,
And
if
also,
I
and
don't.
also, so what? We're saying that we're creating our own reality. Then what? What do I do now? And I need to. Does that mean I don't have to go to work? I don't have to pay the bills. I don't have to. If I see a cop, if a cop pulls me, asks me to pull over, I still have to stop? Yeah, but here's the thing. That's the big thing. You are able to begin living in two worlds at the same time. This physical reality we discover after we start practicing the wisdom of Kabbalah a little bit, that it is not here by chance. It's not just an illusion, it's an important illusion. It's a very meticulously planned, deliberately designed, carefully orchestrated illusion that helps you make the words you liked, inner discernments about the program that operates you and how you can connect to the purpose of that program. And then everything that's happening to you in life, work, weather, politics, your wife, like on the macro and on the micro level, on the personal, interpersonal, social, and global levels, everything that's happening to you begins to be more transparent. It's as though nature is is sending you waves on a different level. You begin to read to read your life, to read the world, to read your conscious experience with a new kind of vessel that is developing in you, with a new kind of device, with a new kind of sense. You begin to see that nature, through everything that's happening to you in life and everything that's happening in the world, nature is orienting us, and we have a conscious role in that. We can begin to move along with where nature is moving us. And that is what puts us in what Kabbalists call equivalence of form, in a sort of a balance with the natural program. We begin to experience life on a completely different level. You begin to sort of be in the movie and in the director's seat at the same time. And this is something that I think anyone who even just starts studying the wisdom of Kabbalah and actually, puts in like the desire into it and works on it, begins to experience in a tangible, real, unquestionable way, except that it's personal. And you can only explain to a person, what to do to try to experience the same thing, but you can't just show him the experience. He has to get to it, develop his own vessel for it. So, how do we conclude this, man? We're over time.
Everything. So in the meantime, until we live firmly in both worlds, and now this goes out to you, everybody out there driving through the night, with the window down. This goes out to you. Until we stabilize ourselves in two worlds completely. Everything that happens in the physical world, try and think of it in terms of that desire Asaf was talking about. Imagine that you're like a piece of clay. We call it the creator in the wisdom of Kabbalah. Kabbalah Islam says call it nature. Doesn't matter. Nature is playing just to stretch and bring closer and pull this way in order, and you there just to make the desire feel. Just to make the desire feel. I see I'm standing in the passport office for 4 hours and no one's listening and I can't believe what the world has come to. Or I'm going outside in COVID this, or I'm dealing with this with my wife, with my dog, with my whatever. Think of it only as nature playing with the desire in order to elicit emotion, the power of desire. Don't name it yet. Don't worry, just that whatever the experiences that are happening with this clay, imagine you're a piece of clay, because you are. Imagine that with this clay, nature is just pulling it and squeezing it and pushing it and whatever, just in order to get desire out of it, just to shape the desire. Now, on top of that, we're going to continue together to make all of these discernments on that desire. And at some point, the two worlds will stabilize together, and then the spiritual world will imprint on the physical world, will be beyond time, space, emotion. It's going to be a good time. We'll see you next Thursday.
We will. And Seth, I see, speaking of desires, I see on the chat a growing desire for you to play something live. So maybe next show, maybe make a commitment to do it next show.
Yes, we will. We'll do it next show.
There you go. A conscious commitment. Consciousness happening in the great transition. Thank you, everybody.
All right. We'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks, Chris, and thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
What am I? Learn what they know. You're just a child. I learned by watching you. I need you to show me something good. Show me how. Can't do it without you. We're not waiting for something to happen. We determine what will happen. We're not waiting for something to for something to happen. We did turn